I'm Vernon E. Jordan, Jr. I live here in Washington, D.C. I work 4 days a week at Lazard Frere, New York, as an investment banker. 1 day a week here in Washington as senior counsel to my law firm, Aiken Gump, Strauss, Howard, and Fell. It all begins with these two wonderful parents of mine, my mother and my father, who were great sources of inspiration and stability and discipline. My mother was sort of the CEO of our household. And so there was great structure, there was school, and that was coming home from school and taking off your school clothes and putting on your play clothes. There were three kinds of clothes in my childhood: Sunday go to meeting clothes, school clothes, play clothes, each in its own time, in its own way, and enforced. And then there was school, which meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to my parents. My mother was the president of every PTA at any school that I ever attended, starting in the first grade. When my youngest brother and I were in separate schools, she was president of both PTAs. So that gave me some notion, number one, about responsibility to others, but secondly, leadership. And he came and stood over me and said, "What are you doing in my library?" And I said to him, "I am reading, Mr. Maddox." And Mr. Maddox said, "I've never had a nigger work for me who could read." I said, "But I can, because I'm colleged." And he said, "So you go to school over there, those colored schools over there?" I said, "No, sir." "Where do you go to school?" I said, DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. "White children go to that school?" "Yes, sir." "White girls go to that school?" "Yes, sir." And then he asked a question that defined the dark side of the Southern aristocracy. He said, "Well, are you going to be a teacher or a preacher?" Because in his mind, if you were a learned and educated black, you only had two options: to teach or preach. And I said, "No, Mr. Maddox, I'm going to be a lawyer." "Niggers aren't supposed to be lawyers," he said. I said, "I'm going to be a lawyer." When the networks announced that Barack Hussein Obama was the president-elect of the United States, tears ran down my cheeks like waters running down the rivers of Babylon. And it dawned on me as I cried that my tears were not just my tears. They were the tears of my parents and my grandparents. They were the tears of all of those black people who lifted that cotton and toted that bale. And I thought about what my mother said every day: "This is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And I reflected on a moment in 1943 when Eugene Talmadge, the governor of Georgia, was running for re-election. And I'm sitting with my father listening to the radio, and Talmadge comes on WSB and says, "I'm Governor Eugene Talmadge, I'm running for re-election. I have two planks in my platform, niggers and roads. I'm against the first, and I'm for the second." And so for me, 1943, Eugene Talmadge's statements about his two platforms, and in 2008, Barack Obama being elected President of the United States, that was a huge moment in my life and a moment that I never thought I would live to see.